Stewardson, home of Jazz St. Louis. Thank you for attending tonight's concert here in Faring Bistro. Jazz St. Louis is a nonprofit organization whose mission it is to lead our community in advancing the uniquely American art of jazz through performance, education, and community engagement. We'd like to remind you of our listening room policy and ask that you please keep table conversations to a minimum during the performance and silence your phone out of respect to those around you and the musicians on stage. The use of flash photography is prohibited, as is the use of any recording equipment. On behalf of Jazz St. Louis and our restaurant partner, Birch Culinary Company, we sincerely hope you enjoyed the performance.
How we all doing tonight? It's a pleasure to see all of you. We got a lot of St. Louis pride in the house tonight, so I'm excited about that. And we have an actual spring this year. We're enjoying that. That's a new thing. It's been a couple years since we've had an actual spring. So, how many of y'all have been to our Whitaker Foundation, our Whitaker series? Got a few folks? These are some of my favorite events at Jazz St. Louis, and I tell folks, just like our artist residencies, some of the best concerts we have are actually on these. It's not even, and our concert season's great, of course, but it's always a special thing. Tonight's band in particular, we have Russell Gunn, who's a living jazz legend. The rest of the band is all from the St. Louis metro area. And I just want everybody to know, when I say St. Louis, I'm talking about East St. Louis, I'm talking about North, I'm talking about everywhere, right? We don't need these borders. With that said, I also want to give a special shout out to the Whitaker Foundation for helping us fund these. And our season sponsor, the Stewart Family Foundation of Worldwide Technologies. And of course, everybody that's here tonight. So, if you have not been to a Whitaker series, we start the evening off with a talk. And tonight's speaker is someone who I have nothing but tremendous respect for. He's one of the most world-renowned American culturalists that you can ever get. I was gonna read his bio and it was too long and it was making me depressed because I'm not doing enough in my life. Even I was watching a John Coltrane documentary with my wife about a year ago and I was like, oh, Dr. Early's in this too. But he's going to give a talk and then give a quick interview with Russell. So without further ado, can we give a great big round of applause to Dr. Gerald Early?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and I'm very pleased to be here and to talk to you for a little bit. I'm going to make a few remarks about Miles Davis. Now, what I want to be clear about is that I'm not here to give an overview of his career. I'm not here to tell you about the records. I'm sure you know about the records. I'm sure you know about Kinda Blue. I'm sure you know about Bitches Brew. I'm sure you know about these records. So I'm not here to do that. I want to talk about two specific things in relation to Mr. Davis. I'm sure all of you know he was born 1926, died 1991. I'm sure all of you know that he had 3 wives. His first wife was a woman, a dancer named Frances Taylor. His second wife was a musician named Betty Mabry. His third wife was an actress named Cecily Tyson. What you notice that these 3 women had in common is that they were all artistic, and he seemed to be particularly drawn to marrying women who were artistic. I'm not here to talk about those women, although they were very big influences and very important in his life. They all appeared at one time or another on his album covers. Someday My Prince Will Come features Frances Taylor, Sorcerer features Cecily Tyson, and Feed at Kilimanjaro features Betty Mabry. So they were all on album covers. He was very proud of that. He said that he felt that he had to do this because he said black women were not featured enough on album covers at the time that he was making album covers in the 50s and 60s. And so he thought it was important to put his wives on these covers, and he did. So I want to tell you about two things. I got a little script here, so I'm going to talk to her about 10 or 12 minutes. These two little things I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to interview Russell Gunn for about 15 minutes and have him talk about his career and the music and so forth. Then they're going to perform. So let me begin. I got two observations I want to make about Miles Davis. This is the first one. In an interview Miles Davis did with Alex Haley for Playboy magazine in 1962, which you should notice means that he had really achieved mainstream fame, being interviewed for Playboy magazine in 1962, okay? Davis talked about the challenges of being a working musician. This is what he said, quote, "Fronting a band ain't no fun. A lot of people don't understand that music is business. It's hard work and a big responsibility. I hate to even think what all I've been through to play my horn and still go through. I put everything I've got into it. Even after a good rehearsal, I feel empty. And you add to playing your instrument the running of a band, and you got plenty of problems," unquote. Miles Davis emphasizes the physical demands of playing a musical instrument at a virtuoso level for long periods of time every night. This is hard work. He had a lot of health problems over the course of his career, but he also worked hard to stay fit. He trained as a boxer for a good part of his adult life because he admired middleweight champion Sugar Ray Robinson. He thought boxing gave him stamina to play his music. He needed the stamina because he had a lengthy career as a star and a trendsetter. But in addition to the physical demands, in the quote, he also speaks about the mental demands of running a band, the responsibility of making sure other band members show up, that they are in condition to play, that people in the band get along well enough for the band to function as a performing unit. Davis was also responsible for paying his bandmates, getting bookings, and creating the band's book of tunes. He had to hire and fire people, organize rehearsals, and get record dates. Remember in his autobiography, Miles Davis said when he played with Eddie Randall's band in St. Louis as a teenager, he was the musical director of that band. He set up the rehearsals and he rehearsed the band. He was also arranging and writing music for the band. It is clear that Davis's experiences as a musician, even when he was an apprentice as a teenager, was that he was a leader. He learned at a young age how to make a band work successfully. In the same Playboy interview, Davis was asked about his bad temper and his rudeness to his audiences, and he said, quote, "Look, man, all I am is a trumpet player. I can only do one thing, play my horn, and that's what's at the bottom of the whole mess. I ain't no entertainer, ain't trying to be one. I am one thing, a musician," unquote. He added, quote, "Man, when I'm working, I know the people are out there, but when I'm playing, I'm worrying about making my horn sound right," unquote. Davis was correct when he said music is a business, no matter what kind of music it is. And while Davis is right in one respect that he was not an entertainer, in another way he is wrong. Any musician standing in front of a paying audience is an entertainer. It could be Isaac Stern, it could be Prince. The people may come with different expectations about what they will hear from these performers, but they have come to hear performances that will take them out of their ordinary life and experience, something that will enrich their imagination and uplift their emotional life. Audiences expect to have their hearts and minds revived when they come out to hear a performance. Music is a business for sure. It is the business of how to make a living, how to make money affecting people's hearts and minds through sound. Davis was aware of this when he changed his music radically in 1969 in recording Bitches Brew. Incidentally, the title for that album was suggested by Betty Mabry, his wife. Davis also wanted a young audience in the late 1960s, especially a young black audience, that he thought so much about this that he considered signing with Motown Records. One way to understand Davis's transformation in the late 1960s is that he wanted to bring young black people back to jazz. A lot of black jazz musicians were thinking the same way at this time. To get them the music needed to tap into the trappings of what, no, I can't read that. That's totally screwed up. The concern of many black jazz musicians at the time was to get young black people back to listening to jazz. They felt they had lost them to Motown. They felt they had lost them to Stax Records. They felt they had lost them to R&B music in the late 1960s and into the early 70s. They thought they had lost them to the Isley Brothers, to Kool and the Gang, to Earth, Wind and Fire, to Teddy Pendergrass. They wanted to get those young people back to jazz. This was a big concern. Davis wanted the same thing, which is why he thought about going to Motown Records. And even at this time, there was talk about getting rid of the word jazz itself. It's because it no longer described the music. Starting in the late 1960s, some of you may know this who own Miles Davis records, Davis started labeling his records, quote, Directions in Music by Miles Davis. They weren't called jazz records. Max Roach, the famous drummer, Lee Morgan, the famous trumpet player, they formed a movement to try to change the name of jazz in the late 1960s. They wanted to call it black classical music. But in another way, Davis is absolutely right. He was not an entertainer. You notice that he did not use the word artist to distinguish himself from being an entertainer. He used the word musician. He also said that he was concerned with making his horn sound right. In this respect, Davis sees himself partly as a technician, a master craftsman. He was not a master of the horn in the way that Dizzy Gillespie was, but Davis was the master of his own style, of his own solos, his own personal language that brought the admiration of the public and his fellow musicians. He was a technician of improvisation. He touched people with the beauty and depth of his playing that is rare for any musician. One of the most common things that was said about Miles Davis was not that he was the greatest jazz trumpeter, but that he was the greatest jazz trumpet soloist. That no one could play better trumpet solos than Miles Davis. Yeah. Don't applaud, just throw money. Race also played a role in why this distinction for him was so important, that he was not an entertainer. Elsewhere in the 1962 Playboy interview, he said, quote, "You bring it down to musicians. They want you to not only play your instrument, but to entertain them too with grinning and dancing," unquote. Davis wants to make it clear that he is not some sort of minstrel, that there is something more, but there is something more than that. He wants to make it clear that it is not his job to make the audience like him as a personality. That the only way black people are acceptable in our society is if they're likable. He doesn't care if he was likable. He only cared if he is achieving the level of playing he owes them as a master musician. Nothing more, nothing less. From the evidence of his own words, Davis clearly stated that he was what he was, a master musician and a leader and creator of bands. He was not an entertainer, even though he was in the entertainment industry. He didn't even know how to be an entertainer. Singer Lena Horne called Miles Davis a potentate, and then she also called him a Puritan. And she was exactly right. It has been said that William Faulkner wrote more great novels than any other American writer. It can also be said that Miles Davis made more great records, from The Birth of the Cool to the quintet with John Coltrane to the second quintet in the 1960s with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock, up to the record in 1985, You're Under Arrest, that all of these records that he made more great records than any other jazz musician. Faulkner did not consider himself an entertainer either. The second observation I want to make deals with Miles Davis's roots in this area. Davis writes in his autobiography, quote, "East St. Louis and St. Louis were country towns full of country people. Both towns were real square, especially the white people from around there, really country and racist to the bone. Black people from around East St. Louis and St. Louis were country too, but kind of hip in their countryness. It was a hip place. A lot of people from that area had a whole lot of style back in those days, still probably do. Black people from that area of the country are kind of different from black people in other places. And I think when I was growing up, it was because of the people, especially black musicians, moving back and forth from New Orleans. St. Louis is close to Chicago and Kansas City as well. So people would bring the different kinds of styles of those places back to East St. Louis," unquote. Miles Davis was born in Alton, Illinois, as I'm sure all of you know, and he grew up in East St. Louis. In effect, in describing the black people of that region, he is also describing himself. He could only speak this way about the region if he felt he possessed a special understanding of it. What is more interesting is how he contradicts himself in the passage. The black people of St. Louis and East St. Louis are country, but they are also hip. That is a way of saying that the black people here in East St. Louis and St. Louis are authentic in their roots, but they're also modern. And he describes St. Louis and East St. Louis as gateways of black culture, people passing through this area. They are cities that lots of black people from other parts of the country pass through, and in this way enrich the black life here. Davis also mentioned in his autobiography that in his boyhood, St. Louis trumpeters had a distinctive sound. Quote, "Back in those days, around 1940, St. Louis was a great city for trumpet players. Harold Shorty Baker, Clark Terry, and myself, we all played like that, had what I used to call, quote, that St. Louis thing," unquote. All that indicates how much Davis saw himself as a product of this region. It must be remembered that even though he left East St. Louis to go to New York, ostensibly to attend Juilliard, but in truth to follow his musical idols Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, Davis first heard and played bebop in St. Louis with Billy Eckstine's band. And he first met Gillespie and Parker, the rebels of bebop, here in St. Louis, not in New York. He experienced a revolution in jazz first in St. Louis. Also, when Eckstine refused to take Davis with him when his band left St. Louis, Davis said in his autobiography that he lost confidence. But here's a quote, "But playing around East St. Louis and St. Louis again before I went up to New York helped me regain my confidence in myself," unquote. That's how important East St. Louis and St. Louis were to him. He gained his confidence back to be able to go to New York by playing again after Eckstine rejected him to travel with the band. There is no question that this region shaped his psyche, his identity, his sense of himself as a person and a musician. Miles Davis lived in St. Louis and East St. Louis, and those places lived in him. Those are my two observations. Now I would like to go to the second part of our pre-performance thing. And I'd like to, oh my goodness. I wish I had classes like this where people shouted back at you. Kids are too shy to do that. Now I would like to have a short conversation with the brilliant trumpeter from East St. Louis, Russell Gunn. It's a great pleasure. Whoops. I find it hard to function without a script, even though when I write them for my class, I never follow them. So it's a great pleasure to have you here and have an opportunity to talk to you. I'd like to start out just by asking you about growing up in East St. Louis and what that was like and what led you to becoming a professional musician.
Well, I don't know how much I can say about growing up in East St. Louis that people don't already know about growing up in East St. Louis. I grew up in East St. Louis in the 80s, so you can do the math. But as far as being a professional musician, it started there. It started, as a matter of fact, my cousin, I think he's here somewhere, Anthony Wiggins, great trumpet player. That's really my first inspiration and who I wanted to be. Where Wig at? Oh, there he is. Say hey to Wig, everybody. Yeah, with when I got to where I lived, I was supposed to go to a different high school, East St. Louis Senior High School. But when I was in junior high school, I went to King Junior High School, if anybody remembers that. And we had a jazz ensemble in junior high school, and we got to do maybe sort of like a little concert at Lincoln High School, and I got to hear Lincoln's band at the time, and Wig was the star of that band, and I knew then that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to be like that dude. That's who I wanted to be like. So that's how it all got started for me.
And when you were at this young stage and so forth, what particular musicians inspired you to want to pursue this?
Well, early on, I was drawn to the sound of the trumpet of Lee Morgan. And I was drawn to that sound because, for lack of a better term, it was, really soulful, bluesy, quote unquote, churchy. And, that was right up my alley. And that's because that's the St. Louis thing, even though he's from Philly. And so that's what drew me in, really. That's what made me say, all right, I want to sound like that. That's what I want to sound like. And it went up, and of course, things progress. The more you get into the music, the more you discover, the more you learn. And believe it or not, Miles Davis was never on the list, even though we went to the same high school. He was never on the list because, for a couple of reasons. One was, probably the main reason was that I didn't really understand what he was doing. I mean, it was difficult to to understand his approach when you listen to other trumpet players like Freddie Hubbard or Lee Morgan or Clifford Brown that are playing like a lot of stuff. They're just playing all over the trumpet. And Miles's approach was not like that. It was more lyrical and, of course, there's a musical term, it's more diatonic. It wasn't really making all of the chord progressions. It was just kind of finding his way through that. And I couldn't understand that at the time. And number two, the being from East St. Louis and going to Lincoln High School where Miles went to, our high school band director, rest in peace, Mr. Ron Carter. Yeah. I mean, that was the first thing he said to me. He was like, Miles went here, so you got to blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't even like how he plays. I don't want to. It was a lot. For me, it felt like a lot because after Wig graduated, I kind of became that guy. And so a lot of those expectations were, placed upon me to kind of, hold the mantle that Miles Davis created. And I didn't really want to have anything to do with that. I just wanted to be like Lee Morgan. I wanted to be soulful and brashy and, those kind of things.
So, But you did do a recording of Miles Davis's tunes. This was back, I think, about 2007, and you produced this record. It's called Russell Gunn Plays Miles. Could you talk a little bit about that recording and why you did it and the particular tunes that you chose for the recording?
Well, like I said, initially, Miles was not an influence. But again, the more you grow in the music and you really start to understand what's going on, it's like a language. If, once you start to speak a different language, like you start like French or something, you learn like the first couple of letters or first couple of numbers, and then you're able to have a full-on conversation, and then you're able to understand, slang and different dialects from different parts of the country. And it's like that with jazz music. And so once I really started to understand what was going on, then I became a student and decided that I think I wasted a lot of time not upholding what I probably should have been upholding. So when I did that record, Russell Gunn Plays Miles, I was in a period of my exploration where I made I made a series of records called Ethnomusicology, and my original intent for those recordings was to kind of infuse all of the black rhythms that I possibly could in a recording, but still maintain the way we improvise on top of those and using the jazz language and harmony and things like that. So I was really in that kind of space where I was dealing with those kind of rhythms and things like that. So when I did that recording, basically what I did was I took tunes that I liked that Miles played, tunes that were heavily associated with Miles's name, and added my own little rhythmic twist to what we're doing. We're gonna do a couple of those tonight from that record.
Yeah, I noticed that in doing that record, you did put your own stamp on it. You weren't trying to just copy what Davis had been doing. You put, I remember the performance of Bitches Brew, for instance, so that you did something that was, you could recognize it as Bitches Brew, but it was something that was really different.
Well, I have to say this too. Imitating Miles Davis is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. Like imitating the way he plays the trumpet is very, very difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. Imitating the way Lee Morgan played trumpet was easy. Imitating the way Clifford Brown or Freddie Hubbard plays trumpet, it's easy. I mean, that's why most people sound like that. That's why most people do it. Miles's approach has a lot more nuance. Has a lot to do with how you breathe. It has a lot to do with note selection. Not to get technical, but there's a specific approach to how he does things that you really don't know until you really know. You know what I mean? So, and once you figure it out, it's like, okay, now I see what's going on. And then you're able to, to put breath in those places where the breath needs to be. And that way, that's how you get that tone. That's how you get that sound. So, I mean, it's really difficult to sound like Miles. And even when I made that record, I hadn't mastered that yet. I hadn't really fully, I hadn't mastered the ability to understand where to put the breath and the note selection. And I didn't understand that the note selection was really methodical. It wasn't just random. It was a real thing and a real a device that he used to get. I don't know. If you listen to Miles play, it's like it just sounds a certain way, but it's a real methodical thing that has a real mathematical equation to it if you really listen to it and understand it. But I don't know if I think I'm over-explaining. Trying to. Sorry.
Let's talk a little bit about the state of jazz today and the audience for it and things like that. How do you feel about the state of jazz today and the audience for jazz and where it is today?
Man, I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, the state of jazz, I think, is how it always been. I mean, if you could, transport us back 70 years, and it'd be the same answer. We'll all give the same answer. I mean, I don't really know what to say about that. As a music, it had its day as a popular music, and that day is come and gone. And so what we do now are like the remnants of a great culture that used to exist. And those of us that do this for real take it very, very seriously. It's almost like Jedi or something like that. Not appreciated that much, but still do this because this is what needs to be done. And I mean, so, as far as the audiences go, and that's always again, you could transport us back 75 years and you probably get the same answer. Like, I don't know, I have a day job, but it's still a musical job. I play trumpet with Marcus Miller, and we tour constantly, and we almost never tour in the United States. Almost never. It's very, very rare. I spend maybe 5 to 6 months out of the year in Europe, and that's what it is. I mean, it's a weird place when every jazz festival can have no jazz musicians on it, and so it puts us in a, pardon my French, it puts us in a fucked up place, because really, what are we supposed to do if there's a jazz festival and all of the artists are really established, well-known pop acts, and then way down you see like the poster, and then way down at the bottom you see like, the jazz quartet of the university of whatever city we in. What are we supposed to do? And ever since I've been in the business, it's always been the same. I've always maintained that you can count the five. You can count the five. And what I mean by that is there's always going to be 5 musicians that are going to be the ones that are going to be on the top of everybody's call. Luckily, I get to play with one. And but I mean, I don't know what to say, because I can't intelligently say that I see a solution, or that there is a solution, because it's too far gone. It's just too far gone. So we just have. So again, like Jedi, we just do what we have to do.
Did you, in thinking about the state of things, and you talked about going to Europe, why is it that Europe is so much more receptive, and you're able to do a lot of touring in Europe, and it's so much more receptive than in the United States?
I don't think that that's actually true. I don't think that Europeans are more receptive to the music. I just think that Europeans are exposed more to it, and it's given to them. You have government-sponsored ensembles, Germany's big band, France's big band, all of these people, and they bring in, people like us for, credibility, and but they're government sponsored. They get money, like real money, to make a living, and we don't have that. I mean, there's what could we say? We have Jazz at Lincoln Center, and other than that, maybe a few that are not quite as affluent. But I mean, every city should probably have one in America, but they don't, and I think that's the difference. Exposure.
I'd like to offer the audience an opportunity if you'd like to pose a question to Russell Gunn. I don't want to just monopolize with my own questions, so we want to take a couple of questions from the audience. Yes.
Just when you were coming up, who were your, like you mentioned, Eddie Randall or Miles, who were your local influences coming up?
Oh man, thank you for asking. Of course, Wig, of course, but locally, I think there should probably be a statue built to this man outside of this building. His name was Willie Akins. And I'll tell you why. Before I left to move to New York in around 93, 94, I was playing around. I was, here in St. Louis, and I was playing around town, and there weren't a lot of places to play, but maybe 2 or 3 places, and one of them was right there. That building that says KDHX, that has that on it. It used to be called the Uptown. And I used to play there every Wednesday, and I would have a quartet or a quintet, and Willie Akins would grace us with his presence. But the thing about Willie Akins is that Willie was a master. He was a true master. He was a master of the music. But he never gave criticism. Number one. And he never gave advice. He let you kind of figure it out on your own. And whatever you did, he was supportive. I mean, no matter where I had a gig, if it was at the gas station and I called Willie and he was available, he would do it. But we're talking about somebody who was a true master, though. Not just like somebody, like some regular cat. He was no regular cat. He was the real deal. And he just happened to live in St. Louis, and he did spend time in New York also, but he was a mentor to myself and everybody that was around at that time, Lamorne Carlisle and Jim Green and all of the cats in St. Louis that were coming up around that time. And then after I left, there was Keon Harold and Marcus Baylor and all of these guys that went on to be, who they are now. We all came under the tutelage of Willie Akins, so he was probably the biggest inspiration. And on a side note to that, there has to be special recognitions for Richard Henderson also. Yeah. So if you don't know who Richard Henderson was that dude that loved the music. And he had a partner named Jim Randall, and they were the ones that would put up the money for us to play at these places here, Spruil's, yeah, and it was because of Richard Henderson that a lot of us were exposed to a lot of the music that we were exposed to. Any musician walking around St. Louis today can tell you that they spent time in Richard Henderson's basement. He had all of the tapes. He had all of the records. He had a Fender Rhodes down there. He had a drum. I think he had a drum set. And you just go over there, listen to records. Richard Henderson, he'd disappear upstairs for about 20 minutes, come back down. After he did this thing, and he sitting there, we just digging the music, man. It was just like, you can't you can't even make these kind of people up. So those two especially were, I think, the two of the biggest unsung heroes of jazz music in St. Louis.
Yeah, I spent time in Richard Henderson's basement. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. A very passionate jazz person. Very, very passionate. Is any? Yes.
So, Mr. Russell, I want to thank you for coming out. I've seen you 3 or 4 times. One time in East St. Louis over at the Jackie Joyner event. Okay, and that history you just gave, especially about Willie Aikens, he is still a master. Some of his music I have, you know, and of course the Screws, and so you know, you just keep on going, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any?
Right there.
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir. So you talk about all these people that inspired you coming up. For the people that you inspire, what do you want to leave behind as far as a legacy, and what do you want people to remember you as a musician, but also what do you want people to get from and to bring into jazz as an art form so it doesn't feel so gone?
Well, you know, I mean, jazz can. I mean, I don't know. It just can't die. There's a recall that black people have, and no matter what, it's always going to be there. The way you see dancers pop up, and then you like, oh man, that's the Zulu maiden dance, or blah blah blah. You know what I mean? The recall is always going to be there. It'll never ever die because it's here. It's embedded in your DNA. It's never going anywhere. So I don't think that it would ever go away. I mean, but like when we were talking about the circumstances of how well it's received, or, you know, all of that is going to be debatable. So as far as what I want people to remember about me, I just try to do the best that I can. And I think the best gift that a jazz musician can have is the gift of perspective. And I'll explain what I mean. The perspective of who you are as a musician, your talent level, how well you play, what you actually offer to the people, what people take from that. As a trumpet player, if you don't have the gift of perspective, you're really delusional. Because like the people that I mentioned when we were talking about earlier, Lee Morgan died when he was 33. Clifford Brown died when he was 26. Booker Little died when he was 23. And these are people that we listen to those records every day to this day, still trying to learn what they did when they were children. You understand? So when you have the perspective of where you are, you know, with what was going on, then you're able to focus, you know, your lane, or focus on what you really need to do to try to become who you are, who you want to be as a musician. I know that really don't answer the question, but because I'm trying to, you know, that's for other people to kind of decide what they think about you when you're gone.
Any other? Oh, one more here.
Yeah, you mentioned, you know, the great club and some of the legacy, but I have to say that I wonder what your thoughts are. I mean, Jazz St. Louis, going back to Jazz at the Bistro, is a wonderful legacy here, and that perhaps we're a little concerned about right now, carrying on, and you're part of it. And I wonder who are going to be the next artists that we're going to see at this club that we don't know. You know what I mean? Who are the next great jazz voices?
Well, I'll tell you that there are some great musicians out there, and I'll tell you this, and I say this with 100% confidence. I think right now in jazz music is probably if not the one of the best golden ages for musicians. There are so many great young musicians, you would not believe it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Okay. All right. Relax, please. Man. There's a trumpet player that I really, really enjoy. His name is Brandon Woody. I'm not sure if he's played here yet, but I'm sure has he played here? Yeah. Brandon Woody, he's an amazing musician. It's 3-0 Croker, Marquise Hill, Keon Harold. All of these guys are. And those are people that people already kind of know. There's literally hundreds of musicians that that could really, really play, and I think this is I think there's more musicians than the business can even actually handle at the moment. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Well, what you say here kind of gives a certain kind of hope and inspiration about the music compared to the comments that you made earlier, because you're saying that there's still lots of young people who go into this, even though the future is murky, there isn't a lot of money in it or anything else, but people are still inspired by this music to want to continue to play it. If a young man came to you, young woman, either way, came to you and had a lot of talent and said, I want to go into this, would you tell him no?
I wouldn't tell them no, but I'll tell them the truth. And the truth is, this is music business, and it's not what you know.
Yeah.
It's about who puts you on.
Right.
And that's always been the case. And just to let you know that is fact, I'll tell you how I got to New York, how I got even put on in the first place. And this is one of the things the main thing I always tell musicians is to always be ready. You don't know, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Before I moved to New York, I was living here. I left college and I moved back here. And like I said, I was playing around town and I really didn't see the future in it. It felt like this was going to be it for me. On a chance occasion, I had a gig. Somebody called me for a gig, and I didn't want to do it. I really was trying to get out of it, trying to think of excuses to not do this. But I pride myself on kind of being a man of my word, so I went and did it anyway. So I go do this, and I'll try to tell this quickly. I go do the gig, and after the gig, a man walks up to me, and his name is Oliver Lake. And I don't know if you know who Oliver Lake is, but Oliver Lake is a great saxophonist from St. Louis. He's the founder of the World Saxophone Quartet. And he was in town visiting something or other, and he comes up to me and say, "Man, you sound great. Can you do a gig with me in Brooklyn in a couple of weeks?" He said, "You think you can make it?" And I say, "Shit, Brooklyn? Yeah, I could get to Brooklyn. That ain't no problem." He said, "No, man, New York." So I was like, "Oh, of course." So again, long story short, so I go to New York and we drive, and I didn't even go to Manhattan. He didn't even take me to Manhattan the first day. He took me to Brooklyn. And when I was driving through downtown Brooklyn, I was looking at the buildings I was like, "Oh my God, look how big these buildings are." I was like that Stevie Wonder song. So anyway, he was nice enough to take me out to the city, and he took me to this place called Vigione's that's no longer there. And then he took me to the Village Vanguard where Mulgrew Miller was playing, and it was unbelievable. I was walking around, looking at the pictures, and, it was getting really late, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. And so I got to go to a jam session at the Blue Note. And I walk in the Blue Note, and literally there's nobody there. Nobody in there. Only people in there was the band, and they were just wrapping up. And so I asked, can I sit in? And they let me sit in. And after that was the last song. After they wrapped up, the guy who was leading the session comes up to me and said, "Man, you sound great." He's like, "I'm gonna talk to Wynn about you." And I was like, "Oh man, I know Wynn because he used to come to my high school. Believe it or not, whenever he would come to St. Louis, he would come visit us at East St. Louis Lincoln because of the relationship he had with my high school band director, Ron Carter." So it was so I kind of knew him, but he didn't really know me. But anyway, he mentioned me to him, and I tell you, 2 weeks later, I was in a room with John Hendricks, Cassandra Wilson, Wycliffe Gordon, Marcus Roberts. You name it, and we were preparing for what became Blood on the Fields. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was the only jazz recording to win a Pulitzer Prize. And that's where I was maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, after I didn't want to go do this gig, to meet this guy, to take me to New York, to put me in these positions. So that's what I mean. If you get ready, things will happen. And I believe in this wholeheartedly, and some people don't. But I always believe that you get what you ask for. And you might not get it, whenever you want it, but you'll get it. You're going to get exactly what you asked for if you stay on it.
Mr. Gunn, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience. Thank you. A hand for Russell Gunn.
Thank you.
We hear one more time for Dr. and Russell Gunn. You guys ready to hear some music? All right, we just need less than 5 minutes to flip the stage here, and we'll get this going. If you like what's on stage, you can clap whenever you want. And I guarantee if you respond to this band, they'll give it back. Without further ado, can we get a big St. Louis welcome to Russell Gunn?
Check 1, 2, 2, check. All right, thank you. I'm tired now, shit. I don't talk at all at home. But anyway, so before we start, let me introduce you to the ensemble. And I'm very happy and very lucky that we have a group of St. Louis All-Stars for you this evening. From St. Louis, Missouri on the drums, that's Jeremy Bean Clemens. From East St. Louis, Illinois, that's Kendrick Smith on the tenor saxophone. And from East St. Louis, Illinois, that's Carlos Brown Jr. on the alto saxophone. Again, from East St. Louis on the bass, that's Mr. Bernard Terry. And one of the people that I got to kind of learn how to play around, as I mentioned, I used to play at this place right over there. One of the people that was with us during that time was a local St. Louis legend, and he just happened to be here with us this evening. That's Pete Ty Williams on the piano. So this is Miles and May, and when they asked me to do it, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do because, you know, a lot of people like to do the same stuff from Miles. So, and I had a different idea of what I wanted to do, but what I decided to do was to play some of the tunes that I've played before that are heavily associated with Miles Davis, and I put my own little rhythmic thing on them. And I can't remember which record this is from, but this is my version of Love for Sale. I ain't seen pizza do that since like 94. All I need is some rice and like a grape soda, and then it's like I'm all the way back in this motherfucker. All right, that was Love for Sale. Y'all familiar with that tune? You know what it's about? You sure? Yeah. It's not, yeah, I'm gonna have y'all look that up. Look up the lyrics, and then you could, let me know what you think. It's Cole Porter tune, right? Okay, we want to continue with, I can't remember which album I heard this on either, but the arrangement of it, I have to thank two people. One is the great arranger Neil Hefti. If you're familiar with his recording, a bunch of recordings, but I was turned on to Neil Hefti from a recording called Clifford Brown with Strings. And about 50 years later, there was a producer in New York named DJ Premier who sampled that recording, and it just happened to be from my favorite rapper. His name was KRS-One. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought I was the only one who knew what was going on. Believe it. I was the only one in New York. I was like, I'm the only one that know where this came from. I know don't nobody know where this came from. But anyway, this record, Clifford Brown with Strings, has the greatest string intro to a great tune called Yesterdays. And so this is our rendition of Yesterdays. Ty. How about Bean? All right, we're going to continue now with now this one I know where it came from. This is off of arguably the most famous jazz recording of all time. This is one of the songs that most people don't play off of that record. You're going to hear a lot of songs off that record in the coming week here in Miles and May. But this is off of the recording Kind of Blue, and this tune was written by Bill Evans, and this is called Blue and Green. One more time for Peter Williams on the piano. One more time for Bernard Terry on the bass. Okay. So this next tune, I know where I heard it from. This is a Gershwin tune, and it wasn't made famous by Miles Davis, but it's I associate it with him heavily because it's one of my favorite recordings, and like Love for Sale. This has some lyrical content that's, I'm not completely on board with, because what happens when people other than people that look like you write for you, like how do you think you talk and how you think you would interact with each other, it becomes a farce. But this is from a very famous opera, and it's called Porgy and Bess. And this is one of the more famous tunes from it. I have two very favorite versions of this tune. My very most favorite is Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald. If you're not aware of that record, Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, Porgy and Bess, do yourself a favor. I don't really care what kind of music you like. That shit is unbelievable. And also Miles Davis covered it. So here we go. This is Summertime. Give it up for Gene. I counted the song off too fast. I don't know how he held on. All right. Thank you very much. Thank everybody for coming. So, me being from East St. Louis and everybody here being from East St. Louis or St. Louis, it's always an honor to honor Miles Davis. And, we know how y'all are. We know how y'all are. You know what? Let me tell y'all something real quick. I used to play with an R&B singer. His name was D'Angelo. I was on this tour, the Voodoo tour. It was a huge record, and we had been a lot of places in the United States. We started in LA for like 5 nights, and it was just like pandemonium. If you remember how big a star he was at that time, it was crazy. But when we got to St. Louis, man, you looked out there and y'all was just like, and it was just like, all right, you took your shirt off. Now what you gonna do? Anyway, so we know how y'all are, so we ain't gonna leave y'all without no blues. all time. Jeremy Bean Clemens on the drums. Kendrick Smith on the tenor saxophone. Carlos Brown Jr. on the alto saxophone. Bernard Terry on the bass. The one and only Ty Williams on the piano. Yours truly. Thank you very much.